Wally Walker started all this guest-wise today,
Mm-hmm.
and I made reference of his relationship with our next guest, and that
Yeah.
would be the legendary Phil Ford.
Yeah, another front row guy, right?
No doubt.
Yeah, Lenny Rosenbluth was with us a couple weeks ago. He's a front row guy. Phil Ford's a front row guy. He joins us this morning, the Carolina legend out of Rocky Mount. Wally Walker said that you guys might have created the draft lottery in Houston. You care to confirm or deny that? And this had nothing to do with the ACC, but you want to confirm or deny that y'all might have helped spark the draft lottery for 1985?
Well, our record didn't hurt the draft. I'll tell you that. We got a good pick because of that.
This was awesome last night to watch the 1975 ACC tournament. You become the first freshman to win the Case Award. I mean, what do you remember about 75? Because they showed those first couple rounds, and, you know, heck, it was touch and go, Phil, even from day one in Greensboro, it felt like.
Well, what I think people tend to forget is, you remember the old Big Four tournament they used to have in December? We lost 2 games in that tournament. We came in 4th place. We lost to NC State and Duke in the Big Four tournament. And for Coach Smith to prepare us and to have us in a position to win the ACC tournament. You know, I talk to Skip Brown all the time now, and he swears out the ball didn't hit the scoreboard, but of course I say it did. But, I mean, we squeaked by Wake. Tree Rollins had a shot. He had just hit the shot, a little 4 or 5 foot jump hook that didn't go in. So that was a really close tournament, and we were fortunate to have won that tournament.
That I still think that tournament, given the fact that the total margin was 20 points for all the games played, and it's kind of funny, Phil, how things work out, right? Because did it hit the scoreboard? Did it not hit the scoreboard? You know, because Wake had you dead to rights. I mean, you got to be sitting there going, man, we're in deep trouble. And I know if you watched that documentary last night, Dean Smith's like, hey, we're still going to win this game. We're going to figure out a way to do it. It's kind of crazy how it all works out, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day,
well, you know, your dad tells me all the time that he was sitting eye level with the scoreboard, you know, and it didn't hit. Now, I don't know about that. I know he's a Wake Forest guy, but, you know, it was really that was one of the closest tournaments that I've ever played in as a player. And as I said before, to, you know, go in overtime in the first 2 games and then to beat the defending national champion with arguably the greatest player ever in the history of our league, you know, between he and Micah and Ralph, I wouldn't want to live on the difference. You know, it was a great thing for North Carolina basketball.
And by the way, on that Wake Forest play, the scoreboard game, where were you when the ball was thrown?
Probably somewhere running behind Skip like I did all game. I can't really remember trying to catch Skip someplace.
Oh, my God. That meant Kuster had to guard Jerry Schellenberg, right? Is that the way that worked?
Exactly.
Who was on Jerry Schellenberg? Okay.
Yeah, Skip was a handful, man. Great guy.
No question. If I asked you the tournament, just the tournament event itself, you played in it, you coached in it, you've been to countless of them. What's changed about it? What's the same as it was in your first one in 1975 to what we'll see in 2 weeks in Brooklyn, Phil?
Well, obviously, my first year in the ACC, 2 teams could go to the NCAA tournament. Previously to that, you know, you had to win the tournament to go. So it wasn't that pressure of actually having to actually win the tournament to go to the NCAA. But, you know, you're talking about the granddaddy of all basketball tournaments in the country, collegiate basketball tournaments. And, you know, to be a winner of that, you know, that goes a long way. You know, you never forget that. I don't think it's lost any of its luster. I think teams really still want to win the ACC tournament. That's a nice line on your resume, ACC basketball tournament winner.
I always love to interview former North Carolina players that played under Coach Smith because the answers are always different. And I know this is going to be a broad-based question, but do the best you can with it. What did you learn the most from playing with Coach Smith?
Well, I mean, loyalty and humility. I think is very important in Coach Smith's life. The older I get, the more spiritual I am. Spirituality was a big part of his life. But playing together, nobody's more important than anybody else. The guys that don't play a lot, just important that the guys that do play a lot. It's just so many things that not on the basketball court that he taught us, but on the basketball court, he taught us to always do the best that we possibly could. And we believe that if we did what he told us to do, we would win. We actually believe that. And, he said when we lost, it was his fault. And when we won, it was because of us. But we kind of felt that if we lost, we just didn't do what he told us to do.
You grew up at a time, and it was chronicled a little bit last night. You grew up at a time where television became one of the driving forces, Phil, behind ACC basketball. Jim Thacker, Mark's dad, Bones McKinney. Games were on television all the time. They were constantly on radio. There weren't pro sports really in the ACC footprint except in Washington. Georgia Tech had yet to enter the league. Did you feel like it was the top step of everything going on in day-to-day life? And how difficult was that? I think people forget now, it's commonplace, so much television, that in that era, there wasn't a lot of this was what basketball was. Everybody, when you saw basketball on TV, it was this, right?
Well, at the tournament, you have people telling you about at work or at school with transistor radios. You have teachers pulling in televisions in classes to watch the tournament. Each school kind of had a hotel, and the maids cleaning up the rooms had stickers of that school on their carts. So it was a big deal. And as I said before, I think it's the grandfather of all conference tournaments. And to win the ACC tournament is a really big deal. And I think teams really still try their best to win that tournament.
Phil, when you go to an ACC tournament, especially if it's in Charlotte or Greensboro, whatever the case may be, how much time do you have to give yourself leading into a game, knowing that I'm going to kiss babies, take pictures, write autographs? I got to imagine you've got to schedule your appearances in an ACC tournament as a fan a little differently than somebody else would.
Man, not anymore. I'm the old guy. It's funny. I was having breakfast with my daughter and a couple other friends this summer, and a young kid walked by me and had my jersey on. And my daughter looked at me and said, "Dad, I don't think he knows who you are." Well, his dad knew, and his dad sent him over to the table for me to sign it. But I'm just the old guy right now, man. He said, "Who's the old dude that can hardly walk now?"
Oh, I know better than that. Man, it's Phil Ford we're talking about.
We have talked so much about the eras of this league. And you readily admit you grew up, David Thompson, right? Charlie Scott impacted your life.
Right.
What does it mean to you to hear that guys that played in the 90s, guys you coached at Carolina, and then guys who have continued on, to understand the legacy, the generational legacy of this league? What does that mean to somebody like yourself who's part of that?
Well, it's an honor. It's an honor for me to have played at the University of North Carolina. It's an honor for me to have played in the ACC. I started following Carolina basketball around the 6th or 7th grade, with Charlie and Eddie Fogler and Dr. Clark and Dick Grubar and those guys. And for me to have an opportunity to go to that school and play at that school and play in the league, it's a great honor. And if there by some chance that guys would remember, the things that we did when I was a player in North Carolina, it's a great honor. This league speaks for itself. Nobody has to pump this league up. It's been so many great players, so many great teams, so many great schools involved. It's just the best conference in the country year in and year out, I think.
Phil, I've said this to you before, but I was a big NC State fan growing up.
I know it. I know how you felt about me that night in 1975. You told me that many times. I'm not going to forget that, man.
I know. And I watched that last night, and I remember, I know exactly where I was at the Greensboro Coliseum, and as soon as I saw Dean Smith stand up and do this, I was like, man, I was about ready to scream. And I said, nobody can guard 12, man. We can't guard 12. And I watched that again last night, and a smile came across my face because I knew you were going to be on today.
As you guys know, Coach McClendon invented it, but Coach Smith kind of perfected it, and we used it, and it was within the rules, as Coach Smith always said. You know the rules of golf, that'll save you a couple strokes every round. So, we used it to our advantage.
Hey Phil, how would you have defended it if you were me? All right, how would you have just said, all right, this Phil Ford's a problem. They're going to go four corners. How would you have defended the four corners back then? And I'm giving you great players. What would you have done with it?
I'm not sure, because, guys have had success playing at man-to-man. Some guys, sometimes at Maryland, I know they would like to trap it, but Coach Smith came up with a way for us to play against a zone trap. So, it all depends the score and the time. It's just that's a hypothetical situation that I'm not sure what I would do. I would definitely try to put the shoe back on our foot, instead of us controlling the game, controlling the clock, when to score. I would try to put that you control those things. And I guess if you do that, you try to speed up the tempo and, trap, force the ball to someone that's not a very good ball handler. But if, as I've said many times, in order for four corners to work, you have to have 5 very good ball handlers on the court and 5 very good free throw shooters that can hit free throws in some pretty tough times, and 5 good defenders on the court too.
I want to wrap with this, at least from my perspective. We went through this era, and we talk about the tournament, and I know it meant something to you because you've talked about it before, that after the 76 season was over, Coach Smith coached the Olympic team, and there were 4 guys from Carolina, with Steve Shepard from Maryland, Kenny Carr from NC State, and Tate Armstrong from Duke, that all were a member of the 76 Olympic team that went to Montreal and got the gold back for the United States. It's something we don't talk about a lot in this league, but yet last night, the documentary, we saw Shepard, we saw you, obviously Walters on that documentary, Mitch, those guys. I mean, that had to mean something to you guys as a league to dominate an Olympic team that went to Montreal and brought back the gold medal.
Well, another credit to Coach Smith. He and we were all college guys playing against pros from other nations that had played years together. And Coach Smith, I think, had about 6 weeks to put us together. But he instilled in us the only important thing in the Olympic Games was to win the gold medal back. It didn't matter how many points you scored or how many assists you had or how many rebounds you had. If we didn't win the gold medal back, it wasn't going to be a successful Olympics. And fortunately, it was very successful. Puerto Rico tried to spoil it. Butch, good friend to this day, was a thorn throughout my career, but we were able to hold off a good Puerto Rican team and win the gold medal.
Yeah. Hey, great to see you. Be well. Look forward to catching up with you
soon. You too, man. Always good to see you guys.
Yep. Phil Ford. Always a blast. Appreciate it very much. Be well.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you, man.